Hey there, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. What's your staying at a cheap hotel horror story? A friend and I were passing through St. Louis and needed a place to stay for the night, but all the hotels in St. Louis proper were either booked or super expensive. We found one in East St. Louis, not realizing it is the shadiest place on earth. Strip clubs on either side, entire building smelled like burnt rubber, crack smoke. Tried to open the window to get some fresh air and the guy at the lobby started yelling at us to close it for some reason. Turned on the TV and it was just straight up porn on the first channel. Friend was reaching behind the bed to get to the outlet to charge his phone and ended up with a handful of cum rags. Then to top it off, when we checked out in the morning, the guy tried to say we owed him $10 for stealing the TV remote. Moral of the story, St. Louis and East St. Louis are very different places. Do not make the same mistake. Not a hotel story, but I also have a East St. Louis story. I moved from Florida to Utah 3 years ago and drove there. I used a website to plan the whole trip with gas stops and everything, and one of those stops was in St. Louis. I'm driving through the city and it looks so cool. All of a sudden I'm in a sketchy looking place, but living in Florida I didn't think anything too bad of it. But this felt different. But I'm like, whatever, I'm sure that website wouldn't send me to the sketchiest gas station in the world, right? Wrong. I get there, get out my car looking like a bullseye target, wearing new $150 shoes, and $350 Ray-Bans on my face, and a bright red fucking car filled with stuff like my computer, TV, guitars, etc., not knowing it's one of the worst places in the country. And as soon as I get out I get the most uncomfortable feeling and notice everyone is looking at me like they're about to stab me. I swear to God my car has never taken so long to fill up. As soon as I got to my next hotel I looked it up and realized just how stupid and lucky I was that I didn't get mugged or worse. I've lived in some bad crime areas in Florida, but I've never had that feeling of danger like I did in ESL. I'm a compulsive road tripper and I've stayed at a ton of cheap motels. By a wide margin the most disgusting one I've visited was a Motel 6 south of downtown Salt Lake City. It was clearly a meth hotel for prostitution. Out west this isn't that unusual for a Motel 6 in a city, but trust me when I say this was by far the worst. Our room smelled so bad of smoke that my skin felt like it was frying. It was a non-smoking room with ashtrays. Cigarette holes burned into the bed sheets, poop and various body fluid stains on the bathroom ceiling, walls, and floor. A used needle was still in the trash can. No towels in the room. You had to request them from the front desk and they'd give you a once-over before clearing you as worthy of cotton. Pimps were out in the parking lot all night blasting music and fighting while showing girls to various rooms. The Yelp page for this place has a picture of emergency response peeps taking care of a dead body. My first trip to Vietnam I stayed in a bunch of cheap hotels while traveling. Cheap as in $10 per night cheap. The worst by far was a room that was absolutely covered in mosquitoes with no nets around the beds. So as soon as you laid down you could see hundreds of mosquitoes ready to feast on your skin. I ended up spraying myself and my sheets with DEET and sleeping with the covers over my head. We found the only room in town, but the service was lousy. Maids wouldn't enter the room and just left towels outside the door. Turns out that the last maid who entered the room was murdered there a week before we arrived. Stayed at a cheap hotel in London donkeys back. Was traveling and met up with a couple of mates doing their own travels. The room was 2 single beds, and being the only guy I volunteered to sleep on the floor between the beds. I was the only one to escape the worst case of bed bugs I've ever seen. I don't know how they weren't in the carpet as well. The girls were covered head to toe. Shit was nasty, yo. Detroit midsummer with no aircon, so we had to sleep with the window open on the ground floor. Somebody tried to break down the door about 2 a.m. Screaming came from the corridor randomly all night. Bedside light bulb was broken, just jagged bits of glass sticking out. Coffee machine actually exploded, with sparks from the wall plug and all. But weirdly the room was sparkling clean. It was $15, the floor was squishy, my pillow had small blood stains on it, and there were burn marks in the sheets. We told the main guy about it and he said, well, you already paid, so tough luck. The handyman was nice and kinda told him off, saying we should at least get a room that doesn't have a wet carpet, but we ended up staying in that room due to the owner being stubborn. Really should have slept in the car that night. Was on a few week-long college school trip in northern Florida a few years back. Stayed at a very shady roadway and where you had to ask for towels at the front. The key cards weren't keyed to specific rooms and there were several instances where other patrons walked in on a bunch of college students accidentally thinking it was their room. The worst part was at around 1 to 2 a.m. the people I was sharing the room with and I were awoken by a woman screaming bloody murder and pounding on the wall next door. She screamed, "Help, he's going to kill me, and please dear God help," before there was a wet squelching noise and she stopped. We immediately called 911 and our class instructors, who were quite horrified. We fled the room to one of theirs to wait it out. When the police got there, the room was empty except for apparently a lot of blood and drag marks to the door. They forced the entire class to get up and we immediately left and found a different hotel for the rest of the week. So needless to say, I've never willingly stayed in a roadway inn again. Edit: the police did take down our information but have yet to get back to us for follow-up statements. So at this time I believe it's still ongoing or unsolved. Ants had been living in the shower head and pipe, so after a long journey I was dying for a shower and jumped in and wondered why my hair felt strange and sticky and realized I had just blasted ants all over me that I could not get out of my hair. Stayed in this motel a bunch of times as a kid, always thought it was nice, mostly due to the truck stop / burger place next to it. As an adult, took my wife there. It was a Motel 6, not sure if it was a recent acquisition or if it had always been, and man, it was a shithole. The truck stop was still there, but the restaurant changed, and was crappy. All kinds of problems with the room, but more or less par for the course with Motel 6, it's a crappy hotel chain. If you're not familiar, not sure they exist outside the US. What really tripped us out was the scratch marks on the door. In my wife's words, like a small animal or child tried unsuccessfully to escape. Goes without saying we will never stay there again. My mom was traveling for work and sat next to a man, fellow business traveler, on the plane. They had a casual conversation and exchanged business cards. Later that evening she's in her hotel watching TV and gets a phone call from the front desk that her husband is here and they want to know if they can give him a key to the room. Turns out the creep on the plane was pretending to be her husband to try to get into her room. When I was 20, I went to Ireland with my sister and uncle. Most of the trip we stayed in nice places, but the first night in Dublin we stayed in a rundown place where our door has crowbar marks on it. That night around 1 a.m., someone tried climbing in our window. We were several floors up. When confronted, the man apologized and said he thought it was his room. This one wasn't really the motel's fault. I stayed in a motel 9 hours away from the closest city in outback Australia as a single 20-year-old woman on veterinary school placements. A locust plague hit that night. Didn't think I was scared of insects, but it sure showed me. I remember finding them in the morning in places like inside the fitted light bulb and inside the kettle. Didn't stay the second night. You know how a single spider egg sac is like 1 billion babies? Yeah, motel in Southern Cali had spider eggs hatch and there was a moving carpet of 1.5 billion tiny baby spiders. The eggs were behind the TV. There was a massive mirror that stretched the full length of the wall where the bed was. I could swear it was a two-way mirror. There was a crew on site filming a horror movie. It had an indoor pool that had plants growing out of it and you couldn't see through the water, like something was going to come out and drag you in. Our door wouldn't latch, so in the middle of the night when the AC kicked on, the door popped open just enough to hear the chain lock snap. We got a call at 2 a.m. from someone who kept asking how I was doing. His voice was very eerie and calm. He wouldn't change tone even after I was getting pissed asking who is this. Later we thought it could have been a robocall and it just got stuck in a loop on the initial question. We had gotten in late and thought no big deal for one night. We were supposed to be there 3 nights, that didn't happen. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around the world. See you in the next video. Bye.